Hi guys, welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to be answering more Qi Gong questions. Let's get started. All right. Thank you for all your content on YouTube. I really love and appreciate this. This is from an email. I'm not going to read his name because I'm not quite sure if you want his name to be in public. I watched an old podcast from around a year and now the current one. I signed up for the former online course and I am getting started. I have only 2 questions, and I hope I'm not bothering you too much. No bother at all, man. Okay. So, as I understand, there are exercise for the Ming, more on the body, and the Sing, emotional work and spiritual cultivation. That's correct. Then you can split it up in doing and non-doing exercise. You mentioned that the heavenly microscopic orbit would be considered doing exercise. That's true. And as you are using the yi, I guess, thus I had the idea in the lineage of the heaven mountain, you only sit. After watching the first introduction video on your website, you're using your yi as well. Or the projection. Wouldn't that be a doing exercise as well? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, so let me just answer that. So, in the Zhou Dynasty, in the original Taoism, in the Nei period, it's based on non-doing, right? Where you basically sit, and it's kind of like the closest thing to it in modern history that people can get dialed into would be Tibet Dochen, Japanese Zen, sitting Zazen, and also Jomo, or Taoist sitting and forgetting. So those are some of the things you can still find in modern history, even right now on Google, about the example of non-doing practice. Doing practice would be things that you're trying to manipulate the energy, right? Like a Kundalini yoga, where you kind of open one chakra at a time and go up, or like a Taoist internal alchemy, Loi Dan, where you're converting the essence into the Qi into the Shin, and the Shin merging into the Da. Regardless you're doing or not doing, you're basically trying to do the same thing, which is you're trying to go through the central channel until you merge all the way up to the top. And by merging, I mean the best metaphor I can find is the one in Zen, which is the most simple, which is your body drops off, you're into your magnetic field, your personality, and your aura, that melts. So think of it like an ice cube that melts and goes back into the ocean. The ocean being the life force, or the Tao, or the Qi, or the formless God, or the dark energy, or the 0 point energy. Different culture gives it a different name. Basically, the energy that's behind form. All culture agree that form comes from energy. The major disagreement is whether that energy is alive or not. Hinduism believe it's alive. Buddhism believe it's alive. About 10% of Taoism, that's pre-communist, believe it is definitely alive. Certain Greek mythology believe it is alive. Christian mystics believe it is alive. But modern quantum physics, maybe only 10% believe is alive based on panpsychism, and the rest doesn't. But even though those are the disagreement between the two, they all agree on one thing, that is form comes from energy, particles and waves and stuff, and 80% of it is emptiness. So when we're doing any form of Qigong, whether it's doing or not doing, that's exactly what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get back to that energy as the ice dissolves into the ocean. Historically, in mankind, the 2 groups of humans famous for doing this are the mystics and the shamans. The shaman do the melting, dissolving process through psychedelics mostly, warming up through dance and rituals, right? But then the heart of it is usually psychedelics. The mystic path does this through praying, or they do it through meditating, usually more meditating. At the highest level of praying and meditating, they're actually the same. That takes a long time before they meet though, so don't take that saying for granted. Usually it takes about 3 or 4 years before the two become one. Maybe I'll talk about it more on a different episode. That's the doing and not doing. Same objective, different road. But you're saying that in the heaven mountain, some of it is doing, and you're 100% correct. So maybe I shouldn't use the word doing and not doing, because now it's confusing people. But look at it more like yin and yang. The black part of yin and yang, the double fish symbol, the black has a dot of white, and the white has a dot of black. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. So the non-doing original Taoism is maybe 80 or 90% non-doing, but about 10 or 20% doing. And the doing tradition, the Kundalini, internal alchemy, common forms of prayer, that would be doing practices, and they're more like 80% doing and 20% not doing, or 90% doing and 10% not doing. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. So in the original Taoism, we're not against doing, and in fact, we practice doing drills or methods, but we do it minimum. In fact, we only do it when it's absolutely necessary. Like, for example, in the question that you have, about in one of the exercises we do, we project a line through the central channel to the top. Usually when I'm teaching, I use that as a warm-up. But like you might project a line going up like this. Just like Kundalini Yoga, you might project a field going out this way and around, and from the back it goes in. Exactly the picture of a electrical magnetic field of a human body. If you type it in on Google, you'll see that picture going from the top like this, going from the bottom like this, going from the front like this, and going from the back like that. We see pictures like that of the magnetic field all the time, like on science documentation of it. But when you project these lines, at first you're just projecting it. But with enough sitting practices, especially if you couple that with standing, you actually feel that when you project it. So you are doing stuff because you're projecting, right? However, usually if the guy practiced quite a bit, at maximum 6 months, he should no longer have to project that. As soon as he sit, as soon as he relax, that happens all by itself. Now it's non-doing. So that would be an example of how non-doing tradition of original Taoism was used doing. But the way they look at doing is more like something you have to do if you absolutely need to do it, but it doesn't last. In no more than 6 months, it will disappear and you never have to do it again. It happens all by itself. Whereas doing practice is different. It's kind of like, here's a list of stuff we have to do, stage by stage, in a linear order. And you gotta go through each stage. Each stage will have many variations, many techniques. But in non-doing practice, here's the stuff, all non-doing. We'll grab stuff from doing if we absolutely need to. And how do you know when you need to? It's based on the fact that it is organic. You don't have to sit there and go, okay, here's a list of things I have to do, like a map. It's more like taking a vacation, right? When you take a vacation, you don't want to go with somebody that has everything planned out every single hour. That's no fun. And then they get mad if you sidestep from that plan. You don't want to party with somebody like that, right? Instead, you kind of go where the mind takes you. You kind of go where the heart takes you when you're on vacation. It's like an adventure, right? But when you need doing, if you need a map, you go get one. If you need a GPS, you go get one. If you need a tour guide, you go hire one. But it's based on being spontaneous when you do these things, instead of some kind of cast in stone plan, right? Or like if you're filming, like that great director Quentin Tarantino is like, yeah, we have a script, sure we do, right? But as soon as the camera rolls, it has a life of its own, and we throw the script away. In other words, a script is just a guideline. So when we do non-doing practice, it is like this, or something like bone breathing, or very very popular, especially the fall's coming up and people are going to catch a cold, right? So bone breathing is really good if you have a cold. So you're standing, a doing tradition, and I have a lot of friends that belong to doing tradition, will start doing bone breathing. They'll literally use their mind to squeeze a bone when they're breathing. That's good, but for some people, they can get hurt. They can get nosebleeds, they can pass out, they can get dizzy because they're forcing it too much, right? And that's the nature of doing practice. That for some reason, it attracts people that like to control things, do things, and there's some form of greed and aggression and forcing there. I'm not saying all of them like that, but I'm saying they're known to attract that type of personality type. Non-doing is different. You're not thinking about bone breathing at all. You're standing, you're standing, you're standing. And then eventually, if you stand a lot, you feel like your body's buffering. Like as though your arm is like a balloon. Like this forearm is like a balloon. Your body's like a balloon, your legs like a balloon, and it's being filled up. Usually, if you don't get egotistical, you don't get too proud of yourself, you don't get too excited, and then you settle into that buffering, what happens next is you feel like your pore starts to open. And then you start playing around with it. When it first happened, you open the window, you close the window in your house to see if you're tripping balls, if this is actually happening. If you open the window and the wind's coming in or the air and you feel more cold, You feel like it's passing right through you as though you're a ghost. You shut the window, it doesn't happen. You do, or you turn on the fan or the air conditioner. You're trying to test if this stuff is passing through, right? After a while, the doubt starts to leave you. With so many tests, you go, "Oh shit, I think my pore is opening." You accept it. You don't get excited. You don't leech on some analytical essay onto it. You just let your ego subside. You accept it. You keep standing. The pore is opening. Eventually, what happens if you do that is you start doing pore breathing. You're not doing it though. You're letting it happen by itself. If you manage to still not interfere, and you can still control your ego, not control, but you can still leave your ego aside at that point, which is pretty rare, and you keep standing while pore breathing is happening without paying attention to it, without engaging it, without analyzing it, just letting it happen, then the next thing that will happen through the pores is bone breathing will start to happen by itself. Something else is going to happen after bone breathing, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. There's two more things actually, because for those watching who belong to a doing tradition, if I tell you, you're going to end up doing it, forcing it, get nosebleed and pass out, and I'm going to get all these emails, and I don't want to be responsible for that. And it has happened before when I overteach. So maybe in class in my program, if I screen people, I'll start showing them that there's a responsibility to keep people safe, right? So anyways, so as you're doing it, now you're doing bone breathing, but you're not doing it. You organically let it happen. That would be an example of how in non-doing tradition, we end up doing the exact same thing. Most of the time in the doing and non-doing tradition, we end up in the same spot. We just take different roads. One does it by doing, predicting, and forcing and manipulating and using the will. And it's not a bad method because some people need that personality type, right? The non-doing tradition, everything feels like an accident. It just happens by itself. You go, oh, that's happening. And you have to look back afterwards, after it has happened, for you to go, that's why that happened. So this can happen. So this can happen. It's kind of like, it's like life, the two paradigm of living, right? One guy is planning everything, predicting everything, finding a backup to a backup to a backup. If this happened, I'll do this. If this happened, I'll do that. He's like that at work. He's like that with relationship. He's like that, like, what do you want to be 5 years from now? He's that kind of guy, right? He plans everything out in his life. And he tries to control everything to go according to plan. Usually the result of that is more stress, anxiety, and depression. In the modern age, burnout's very, very, very common, right? But another way of living or another way of practicing is like, oh, you just follow the signs. You follow your intuition. You follow your creativity. You respect your feeling without questioning it if it feels really deep. And then usually what happens if you live like that is you don't understand until later when you look back in your life and you go, that actually had to happen for this to happen, for that to match, and everything seems to line up. So that's another way of living, right? So now I'm talking about absolute, these two descriptions. But in reality, a more non-doing way is 80% this, 20% that. A doing personality or doing tradition is 80% this, 20% that. But there's no pure doing and pure non-doing. It's more like the yin-yang circle of 80-20, 80% black, 20% white, or 80% white, 20% black. So I hope that helps. It's hard for me to communicate this because as soon as I say the word non-doing, then this kind of miscommunication based on your question happens, right? Like, hey, I thought you said it's non-doing, but when you do that, it is doing, and you're correct. You're 100% correct. So there's no word that encompasses all this. So anyways, I hope you did an okay job explaining this. If not, just email me again, and I'll be glad to tell you about that. Oh, there's another question, but we're kind of out of time. On the next one, I'll answer this one, and I'll follow up with another one. All right, guys, please like and subscribe and share this video with someone that you know is going through a hard time if you feel that it helps. The Qigong course on my website, that everything we talked about in the last 10 podcasts is finally launched. If you haven't checked it out, we train together in a live stream class one time a week. There's also a student library where you can watch the class if you miss class. Go to the description below, follow the link. Make sure you follow the link, because if you end up in my old website, this is not where this program is. You could have a hard time finding it. So please follow the link below in the description. Go check it out yourself so I don't have to keep nagging at you right now. All right, guys. See you next time.